Hi, and welcome to episode 5. This is part 2 of The CIA Did It. And this is going to be a continuation. We're going to start actually looking at the information now and the actual accusations that came out from the period of 1985 to 1988. In my previous video, I talked about a summation of researching and gave an introduction to this. But now we're going to actually start looking at the information. And going forward, the rest of my videos will be digging into the information. So a couple of videos ago, I talked about when looking at a plane crash, a couple of questions to ask yourself. And one of the questions was there somebody on the plane that was important enough to warrant someone wanting to take the plane down? And my answer to that was Samantha and Arthur seemed important to me at any rate. But a lot of people question that and they think, why would somebody want to take out a child? You know, why would somebody do that? And the answer to that is that there are people on this planet that would absolutely do something like that, especially to push forward agendas. I think a lot of people don't want to believe that, but I think you're living under a rock if you don't understand that concept. But it became even more apparent when I started looking at the accusations and foul play. And when I started looking at this, I started seeing patterns develop where the information, the accusations would be disseminated around certain events like the summit, the Geneva summit, other summits, the NTSB investigation, and then other legitimate people who were questioning the plane crash as well and actually querying things like the FBI and things like that. And I started to see the patterns developing. And we'll see that as I go forward while talking about this. The first accusation that I actually came across was from a Soviet newspaper called TASS. And I'm going to hold off on that one right now because I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, because there was actually a CIA document that references that article. So I'll hold off on that for now. And the first one I actually want to talk about happened at Samantha's funeral. And it was talked about by Harry Thomason. He's the guy on the left here. His wife is Linda Bloodworth. That we'll definitely talk about her down the road as well. But Harry Thomason actually told someone in an interview that people thought that the cast of Lime Street, people involved with Lime Street, were working for the government and actually might have had something to do with the plane crash. So there's a book called, let's see, I have it right here. It's called The Show Must Go On by Douglas Snoffer. And on page 149, he has this to say, where he says, Wagner and Thomason flew back to the United States for Samantha's and Arthur Smith's funeral in Maine. The service was difficult enough without some of the allegations that had recently been waged, like I was talking about the TASS article, against the production and crew. Earlier that week, a Russian newspaper had reported that members of the Lime Street crew were spies for the U.S. government and may have had Samantha killed. Now, I don't have access to this particular Soviet newspaper article, and if anybody out there has access to it and can translate it for me, that would be great. I would definitely appreciate that. But I don't have the actual newspaper that stated this, but it's stated in this book. And Snoffer goes on to say, as a result, the Russian delegation on hand at the funeral was extremely cold to any members of the show's staff. And he says, as absurd as it may sound today, maybe it sounds absurd to him. I would say doesn't sound absurd to others. Thomason believes, and this is quoted, at that time, at the place, at the height of the Cold War, it was possible they believed it. And then he ends it by saying nobody from the United States government showed up, in keeping with the opinion that Samantha had been used as a propaganda tool by the Soviets. So he references this newspaper, the Soviet newspaper that Harry Thomason speaks about. So right off the bat, the cast and crew of Lime Street are already being questioned, and and I'll go into Lime Street further down the road in great detail, and it will be extremely interesting. And there were many people involved with Lime Street who had ties to the government, many of them. And including these two right here. If you're familiar with the Thomasons, you know their relationship with the Clintons. And I mean, Robert Wagner. But you can even go further down, and you've got John Standing with big Great Britain ties to Great Britain's government. But I'm getting sidetracked. I don't want to go into that right now. But I just wanted to bring up that even at Samantha's funeral, relations were cold with the Soviet emissary who came over and gave a eulogy at Samantha's funeral because of these accusations. They're actually, Lime Street was actually accused right off the bat. So it's a very interesting one, and I'll talk about that more as we go down the road. But another one that I found right after that came from, let me bring him up, this guy, Genrikh Borovik. He was a Soviet and Russian publicist, writer, playwright, and filmmaker, and father of journalist Artyom Borovik. Borovik, he actually also accused the U.S. of bringing Samantha's plane down. And this is one of the earliest accusations that I could find. And this Wikipedia article goes on to say Vasil Mitrokhin, he was a KGB agent. He claimed that Borovik was a KGB agent in the United States, and that he was a conspiracy theorist and blah, 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 and all that. Vasily Mitrokhin, I believe, was involved with the KGB as well, and he was a defector. So I'm not sure how much salt you want to give to him putting down Genrikh Borovik's accusations. But Borovik eventually went on, and he was the last chairman of the Soviet Peace Committee in 1987 to 1991. But this was one of, a major figure that actually accused the U.S. of foul play with Samantha. So that was one of the original ones. So now I'm going to go to this CIA document that right here, Soviet rumor has Samantha Smith killed by the CIA. And they actually, let's go through this. So it's an article by Antero Piatila, Moscow Bureau of the Sun, which was a Baltimore newspaper, I believe. And he says that an apparently organized whisper campaign is spreading the rumor here that Samantha Smith, the 13-year-old Maine schoolgirl who promoted goodwill toward the Soviet Union, was killed by the CIA. And in here, he's going to reference that TASS article right here. Rumors that the Smith girl was killed by the CIA began almost as soon as the official TASS news agency reported her death in a plane crash August 26th. Goes on to say the original TASS report may have encouraged speculation about a conspiracy because it said that the plane carrying Samantha and her father had been diverted for an unspecified reason. Now, the author of this article then says that reason was bad weather, but TASS never mentioned it. That's not entirely accurate, his saying that, because as I'll go into later on, the plane was diverted because it picked up 2 new passengers who were going to go to Auburn Lewiston. And that's why that's why the plane was diverted and to where it actually crashed. There were 2 two passengers they picked up at the last minute. Now, the plane was being delayed heavily. And you can attribute it to bad weather. It was raining. The delays seemed excessive to me, and I'll go into that more when we talk about the actual plane crash. But him putting that in this article, his own take, that's incorrect, and it almost seems misleading. Like they're trying to draw people away from thinking something suspicious about this plane crash. And this is misinformation at the worst. Or at the least, it could be disinformation, but it's misinformation. He's not entirely accurate with saying that. The article also goes on to talk about Jessica Savage, and it links Jessica Savage with Samantha. And Jessica Savage was a PBS reporter, died in October 1983 in a bizarre car accident where a car flipped over and went into a little channel. The water wasn't even that high. I mean, maybe it was a foot. I don't know. I don't remember the exact details of that. But she wound up drowning. And if anybody's familiar with Jessica Savage, she was a very controversial reporter, and she had been talking about the Russian Jews, and I think they allude to that in this article. Yeah, those who specialize in anti-Semitism. And she towards the end of her life, she had some broadcasts where she was slurring her words and some weird things with Jessica Savage, but I'm not going to go into that. But they did bring that up in this article as well. But the main thing I want to talk about with this is that, all right, already you're seeing that the CIA are interested in these accusations about Samantha Smith. Now, if she was just a harmless kid, don't worry about her. Why would they even care about that? Why would they care that people are claiming that the plane was brought down by the U.S. or the CIA or Ronald Reagan? This is where I originally started seeing this, September 12th, 1985, in this reference here. So we're already seeing that, the government and intelligence are already concerned about these accusations that are forming with Samantha and her plane crash. So I just wanted to bring that point up right there. After that, I didn't see much. The Geneva summit happened with Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, and it's kind of sad that Samantha was not alive to see this, because one of the things that came out of this was the exchanges that were happening, that started happening, and Ronald Reagan got a lot of credit for starting these, but really it was Samantha's doing. And the Samantha Smith Foundation had started by now too, and Jane was really pushing that as well. So it's kind of sad that Samantha, she wasn't even acknowledged at this summit. But I'll get to the FBI file on Samantha in a little bit. But I just want to note that I did actually get access to the FBI documents on Samantha. And one thing that was interesting was there was somebody who's claimed they had a photo of Samantha with Yuri Andropov, and he was going to bring that to the summit and make them put it up at the summit. So that's strange, but people were actually thinking about Samantha during this, but there's no evidence whatsoever that Samantha ever saw Yuri Andropov. So I think that really isn't all that legit, but I just wanted to throw that in there, that's in the FBI file. So after the summit, they did a thing called Space Bridge, I believe, in Moscow at the end of the year with John Denver, and it was put on by Peace Child, who I brought up before, and that centered around Samantha at the end of the year, and it was basically the first televised bridge between Soviet Union and the United States. and they had people in the Soviet Union singing, in the U.S. singing, and all that. But that happened at the end of the year. But the next thing that came up was the NTSB hearings that happened on January 28th, 1986 is when they started. And before they even started, there was over 100 pages that were leaked about, bad practices at Bar Harbor Airlines, bad inspections and bad training, and all this stuff got leaked out before the hearings, so the hearings really were biased towards that information, and I thought that was a little strange and convenient to do that. As the hearings wound up, nothing was ever brought up about foul play or suspicious activity or any of that at the NTSB hearings. And in fact, they focused mostly on the airport, the Bar Harbor Airport, and their bad training practices and things like that. And specifically the air traffic controller, Richard Benton. And they grilled him hard and they went after him. And so they really were trying to pin it on him and Bar Harbor Airlines at this point. And there was no questions about anything suspicious, about anything about the plane crash. So already that's really trying to get squashed and put out of people's minds. But immediately after the NTSB hearings, this lady here, Sylvia Chase, she worked for, let me bring it up. Hang on one second. Let me bring this up. This article here. So Sylvia Chase worked for a San Francisco television station called Cron TV. And this was in March of 1986. So shortly after the NTSB hearings. And she petitioned the FBI for a file that she had found out that they had on Samantha. There was an 11-page file on her that I brought up earlier. And she was the first person to actually do this. And she obviously questioned what was going on here. And she is basically saying that Samantha obviously was more important than the governments and all of them were leading on here. So if they actually had a file on her, you saw the CIA document earlier, they were interested in this. And it starts driving home the point that she was more important than people realized. And maybe not her specifically, but the people who were around her. And like I alluded to earlier, these peace groups, all of these people, they had their eye on them. And Sylvia Chase was the first one that actually brought this up. And so the FBI, in this article, as you can see, the FBI denies investigating Samantha Smith, the Maine schoolgirl who became a peace ambassador, but is keeping secret 11 pages of material containing her name because of other people who are involved. So what I want to bring up with this, though, is what the FBI says about this, because this is very important. Smith was not the target of an FBI investigation, FBI said in the statement. She served her country well, is admired and sorely missed. So the FBI are saying she served her country well. So right there, they're saying that what Samantha was doing was actually serving her country. She was trying, it's elevating Samantha right here. The FBI said this. So for people who think that Samantha was not that important, and that it would be ridiculous that somebody would want to take out a child, you've already seen the CIA involved here. You've got the FBI saying that she served her country well. So I was already seeing patterns that, okay, Samantha was definitely more highly regarded than was to believed. And here you see things coming out around the different events, like the NTSB hearings. This came out right after that, as they weren't even focusing on anything suspicious about Samantha's plane crash at all. So after this, the next thing that I found was let's see, let me bring it up. Hang on one second. I'll bring this up. Was this document here? And this came out in, let me go back to the top because I think it was March of 86. It was right after all this came out with Sylvia Chase and the FBI. So this is the first time that I saw Samantha's name officially attached to a intelligence CIA document. And this one, it's called Soviet disinformation: allegations of U.S. misdeeds. So they're not taking these accusations lightly at this point, and now they're calling it Soviet disinformation. So this document was created by the CIA in March of '86, and if you scroll down, they start talking about over the past 2 years, we have witnessed continual Soviet charges about international behavior. So they then categorize all of these things. And in this one here, U.S. involvement in assassinations, Moscow often attempts to implicate the United States when an international figure dies violently. So they talk about Olaf Palme's assassination here. And I'm not really going to get into Olaf Palme, but I know there's still questions about his assassination to this day, as well as Indira Gandhi brought up as well. So we're talking about some high-profile politicians here that we're talking about in this document. But if you notice down at the bottom of the page here, in the initial report of Palme's death on March 1st, the TASS analyst also referred to the death last year of Samantha Smith. Another TASS article on the same day described an alleged FBI assessment that Smith was a menace to national security. And so here, Samantha this is the first time she's brought up in a CIA document. We saw her, well, there was the other CIA document, but that was about the news article. But then you saw the FBI have a file on her, and now she's being brought up in an actual CIA document here. So you can't even argue that they hold Samantha in a much higher esteem than people realize. So already at this point, we're into March of 1986. I'm seeing patterns develop. You're seeing Samantha being, propped up in much higher regard than she was. So already at this point, and now I haven't even gotten into the rest of this for the next 2 years. And you're going to see Samantha continually brought up in these disinformation articles and documents, and then disseminated into the newspapers. But I'm going to hold off on that. I'm going to stop here for now. Keep these videos short because it's a lot of information. But as you can see, it's already developing that Samantha was far more important than people realized. These accusations were legit. They were being taken seriously by the CIA, the FBI, the government, all of this. And we're going to see this continue. But I'll stop here for now. And hopefully you're liking these videos, and they're going to get even more and more interesting and in-depth as we go on. But hopefully you'll watch the next video. Give this video a like if you like it. Subscribe to my channel. Check out some of my other videos as well. And if there is anybody over in the former Soviet Union that is listening to this and has access to these other newspaper articles and can translate all of that, I would love that. Just contact me here on my YouTube channel, and that would be great. All right, have a good one. Thanks a lot, and I will be seeing you.